Sleepless with Steve on FM 89. Thank you so much for being with me. Me, Steve Pulaski, and Joe Viso talking the new Johnny Knoxville film, Action Point, based on the real-life New Jersey theme park, Action Functioning, that was famous for its terrible, barely functioning rides. And you do get a pretty good look at them in this movie. I went online and I was looking up like old maps for Action Park, and I was looking up like old rides and stuff. And you know what? They honestly do a pretty effective job at recreating things.
That's cool.
Like that loop-de-loop slide. I mean, the water slides,
That
zoo.
whole loop-de-loop slide, I'm telling you right now, like, I wouldn't be surprised if they were the first ones to think of that.
Yeah.
Because I've seen that at plenty of water parks now. I mean, it's not, like, as dangerous looking as that was, but I've seen it plenty of times where it's like, if you go to Noah's Ark, the largest water park in the world, there's one, it's one of those drop slides where the floor drops you and you just slide down and do a loop and go.
Yeah, hell, I mean, if you go to Wisconsin Dells, I mean, they got tons of those and stuff. I mean, they did it in the 80s. I would not be surprised, like you said. I mean, who knows if they're the first?
Yeah.
But, I mean, you know what's funny is, like, you look at, like, the spectacular failures of certain things. Like, you look at, like, Action Park and how it was destructive, but it comes with this, like, huge nostalgic legacy and stuff. A lot of successes were built from failure. Let me give you another example. Was you know about the XFL, the Vince McMahon's football league, the guy who does WWE,
okay.
And he did the XFL. Well, the XFL is famous. I mean, it's coming back. Who knows? It's supposed to be coming back in 2 years. They're supposed to be going to bring it back in 2020. Vince McMahon's going to do it, self-fund the whole thing. But in 2002, when it came about, at the XFL, it fizzled out after only a year because the quality of play was awful. You had a bunch of journeyman quarterbacks. You had a bunch of awful NFL reject players. It was crap football. But you know what, though, is that they actually had some things of the XFL transition, like gimmicks of them transition to the NFL. You have those cameras. They do it a lot in Thursday Night Football. You have those overhead cameras behind the quarterback, and it shows you like the quarterback perspective. That was an XFL thing, as well as there was one other detail on there. Miking up players. Miking up players came about from the XFL, and the NFL took it. So, I mean, there's these details of, like, successes are birthed out of failure. So I would not be surprised, I guess, to say that if Action Park was one of the first water parks with the loop-de-loop slide.
Yeah.
It's not much of about. But going back, though, is that, they did do a remarkable job at a budget of about $19 million. They did a remarkable job at, like, trying to build this thing and make it look in some ways authentic.
The entire time, like, you go around this park when, like, Johnny Knoxville's, like, walking around in the beginning or throughout the entire movie.
They do a good job at taking you through it.
Yeah, they do. Right. Like, you do get a size and scale of it, honestly. And the entire time you're doing this, I just thought to myself, I'm like, wow, this actually looks like, kind of a run-down, smaller version of Wisconsin Dells.
It's very true. I mean, because it's got the dirt and everything like that.
It looks like whatever that Greek theme park is in Wisconsin Dells. I forgot what it's called.
They shot it in they shot it in South Africa, in Cape Town, actually.
Really?
I mean, that's I was gonna say that surprised me in a way.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's been.
I thought this was being shot in, like, Ohio or somewhere.
No, I mean, obviously it's got to be cheap as the dirt they were standing on to shoot out there. You know what I mean? I was gonna say much of this budget probably went to the reconstruction of the park, and it was funny too. Did you notice that one ride? I can't remember the name of I can't remember, like, the actual inner workings of the ride. I think it's one of those rides where it's like it was gravity when you go against the wall and it spins and stuff.
Yeah.
Did you see it was a German ride, and it's called Schlittenfahrt. It's called Schlittenfahrt, and the L on the and this was not planned. It was so funny. It was not planned. But the L in that sign burned out. So I just think that's hilarious, and because Tim Kirkby, the director, I watched an interview, he was talking about that, and he said it completely, like, with this deadpan reaction about it. He's like, yeah, we bought this ride or whatever. He's like, cost us an arm and a leg. We had to assemble it when it came in, and then he's like, after about 24 hours, the L burned out. And he's like, which I thought was fitting. He's like, we never even made an attempt to fix it. I
fit the aesthetic of the park.
The story was conceptualized in this movie by Johnny Knoxville, the two writers, John Altshuler and Dave Krinsky, as well as Mike Judge was one of the story writers of this. Mike Judge, yes, that Mike Judge, King of the Hill, Beavis and Butthead, Silicon Valley Mike Judge, yes. So yeah, he's one of the original, like, members to create the story. I would think, if anything, he might
probably very little, maybe
funneled money, maybe.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, or something like that, because it has a bit of Mike Judge humor. If there's any Mike Judge humor that's in this movie, and full disclosure, I haven't really watched Silicon Valley a whole lot. but it's like the supporting characters feel a little bit like Mike Judge kind of characters. Like you have
like the one note.
Four Finger Annie, you have her played by Bridget Lundy Payne. You have Rodney, who's like the numbers cruncher, the little like nebbish kind of geeky, who's kind of funny. I liked him. Played by Eric Manaka as well. You have kind of a series of like one-off supporting characters, but I mean the real stars of this movie are Knoxville Pontius and Eleanor Worthington Cox as his daughter.
Yeah.
You know, any other details you wanted to mention? Anything else that you wanted to bring up about this? General impressions, criticisms, anything?
Man, I'm just trying to think. I just remember walking out of this movie and just like, I don't have really much to say. I mean, I was just disappointed and just kind of felt like the movie was just kind of was just all right. Like I was just leaving. I'm like, this was just all right.
Yeah.
Like I walked out of this and I was like, I was going into it. I was hoping like, oh man, you know, I know like everybody's gonna be hating on it because you know whatever. And people were saying that this is one of the worst movies this year. And if you're saying that, I think that's a bit of an over exaggerated statement.
Yeah, like David Ayer, like who I like as a film critic, but I think he's overblown in some sense. Like he over embellishes some critical points. He gave this half a star.
No,
there have been. I was gonna say, you can't tell me that like Life of the Party, 1517 to Paris, 50 Shades Freed, like those movies are more worthy of half stars than this. You know what I mean? Like this is not unwatchably bad, incompetent filmmaking.
This to me was like,
it's underwhelming. I give you that.
Yeah, this to me like the lowest I could see somebody giving it is 2 stars.
Yeah,
like that's about it. I mean, I'm just walking out of it and just like, you know, when people were saying this is the worst Johnny Knoxville movie and this is one of the worst movies this year, one of the worst comedies, I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, wow, did everybody forget about Life of the Party?
True.
Like, you know, come on, guys.
As far as Johnny Knoxville movies go, I mean, I haven't seen a ton of his stuff. I mean, let me tell you.
Have you seen The Ringer?
I have not. That's one I
think that's his worst movie. And even then, I still laugh at that movie.
I would watch this over Dukes of Hazzard. I've seen Dukes of Hazzard.
Never mind. Dukes of Hazzard, I would say, is his worst
Dukes
movie.
Of Hazzard,
I forget that movie exists.
Which I hate the fact that it sucks because of the fact that I like the cast of that movie. It's got
that did have a great cast.
Willie Nelson, Jessica Simpson, Sean William Scott.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a colorful cast. You know, and I was really disappointed. And it's directed by Jay Chandrasekhar of Broken Lizard.
Yeah.
It's directed by him.
Was it? But it was not a Broken Lizard production.
It's not a Broken Lizard movie.
Yeah,
No, Chandrasekhar just directed it. He just picked that up. But yeah, like I said, this thing at worst, this thing is like comfortably mediocre. But I liked a lot of it because there's a few things that I really did appreciate about this movie. Number one is Knoxville such a tour de force here.
Oh yeah.
This is a guy that suffers for his art. His pain has been our pleasure for many years, and he's very eccentric here. He's loud. He's ribald in a lot of ways. He's enthusiastic. He's clearly having a lot of fun. His passion for like recreating the actual park and the history of Action Park is on display a lot in this movie. So I think you have to give him credit for that. I think he's really good at showing that. And the other thing that I like too about this is, again, I like that Meatballs, Beach Balls, Porky's kind of quality of this movie.
Definitely.
And again, a lot of those like brainless comedies, they're not very good. I mean, if you go back and watch them, they're not very good.
No, they're really not. You go back and you watch them, and it's just like these are cult hits. They're cult
really
hits
are.
for a reason. Like I could see this becoming a cult hit, honestly.
I could.
Like same with like Wet Hot American Summer. That's a cult hit movie that I really like it as well. You know, I try showing it to many other people, and people look at me like I'm insane, and they don't want to take my opinion seriously anymore.
I never cared for that movie personally.
Oh, really?
I never cared for it personally.
Oh, well, there's another one.
I was going to say, that one I've never cared for personally.
I will say the TV show is way better, though.
You know, I wouldn't mind going back to that. Like, that's the Michael Showalter film. Yeah, I would not mind going back to that, but I didn't care for it the first time around.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's where, like, Paul Rudd got his start and stuff like that.
That's where a lot of them, like,
he's in it and stuff. Yeah, there's a lot.
Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, Cooper. That's right. Bradley Cooper's in it. Wow. Yeah, he got a start on that in Sex and the City in the 90s. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I did laugh a lot. I laughed, like, this is one of those movies too that like I might go back on like in a couple years and think like, man, I did give this 3 out of 4 stars. That's my rating. But like there's some movies I go back and I'm like, damn, I gave that 3 stars. Like, it's another movie I caught on TV for like 20 minutes a few weeks ago, and I was like, crap, I gave this a positive review, didn't I? It was that Ashton Kutcher Jobs movie. I like that.
Oh, you actually like that?
I like that coming out of it, but I'm watching like 20 minutes of it on TV. I'm like, Yeah, it's a little bit rougher than I thought.
Man,
it was
isn't that
gonna
the
be.
worst when like you tell people no, you really gotta go check out this movie and everything, and then you're the one that's with them when they're checking it out, and then you're just sitting there and regretting everything. You're just like, what happened to me that day?
I'm like Metro Boomin. I can't even trust myself anymore. I'm like, oh man. But like this is one of those movies I could think of like going back in a few years and like thinking I did give this a positive.
I saw
rating.
this twice, by the way, over the weekend.
Oh no, kid, you saw it twice.
Yeah, man, because like I saw it once by myself, and then I saw it once by myself, and I saw it again on Monday with my stepbrother. He wanted to go see it. I'm like, I'll go with you.
Yeah, I was. I laughed enough at this movie where positive score is that I laughed enough at this movie where I giving it a positive score. I had to give it a positive score. You know what I mean? I laughed. If I gave it anything less than like a positive recommendation, I would be doing a disservice. It's like that movie Rough Night. Mm-hmm. It might not be an amazing movie, but I laughed enough to where it's like, I gotta recommend it. You know what I mean? I laughed enough, and there was enough that I could pick out and say what was good about that movie to give it. It's not even like a pity rating. It's just I laughed enough that I laughed an efficient amount of times in order to really recommend this thing. And I think that if you're a Johnny Knoxville fan, you'll find glimmers of this thing. I think I do agree it's inconsistent. I do agree.
Yeah.
And I also say that there's just some parts when like they're trying to get laughs and the laughs aren't coming. Like Pontius isn't really that funny here. He really isn't. I mean, it's cool to see him, but I think like if you're not a Jackass fan, like you're not really going to care. You know what I mean? It's not really going to do too much for you just to see him. You know what I mean? You'd rather have him kind of being like a personality. I was going to say actually having like some funny lines and stuff. You know what I mean? But I was going to say we can maybe wrap this up a little bit early going to FML after the break and stuff like that. But, you know, I mean, because there's not a ton to talk about with this. But I do think, too, the perk of this movie having real stunts is great as well.
Yes. I mean, that is a saving grace of this film, if anything.
You know it's authentic.
Yeah.
You know it's authentic in that regard.
Even though, like I said, you know what stunts are going to happen in this film. You know like how it's going to go down because of the trailer. It's still great to see on the big screen.
Absolutely.
It's still great to see play out and see the conclusion.
Yeah, and like I said, this movie has a really good look, and it just does not look like other modern comedies nowadays. No comedies try to like emulate this aesthetic. They really don't.
Yeah.
This is an aesthetic that's totally gone in a lot of like mainstream movies. You just don't get it. You just don't get it that often. So it's kind of cool to see like this hazy, like almost like lazy Sunday kind of look to the movie. So I appreciated that. And I appreciate the fact that like Knoxville still has interest in like, you know, putting his life at risk for the great.
Man, if he says I want to make Jackass 4 or Action Point 2 or something, like if he says I'm doing one more for the road, I'm praying for him, man, because I think that might be his last movie.
He came out today and he said that Jackass 4 is like it's not dead. It's not dead. I know there was all sorts of rumors. Did you ever hear about those rumors of Jackass 4? It was going to be like I think this was totally a fan thing. I think this was like what fans wanted. Like they never like alluded to this, but it was like there's been talks like it was going to be Jackass 4. We're not done yet.
Yeah, it was going to be in memory of him, basically.
Oh, you know they're going to do something with it. You know what I mean? Like they're going to do so. They can't do another movie and not mention him. You know?
Yeah, no, he's a founding member, man.
Ryan Dunn. You know, which I remember. I'll tell you right now. I remember. We'll jump into final ratings on this in a minute, but I mean on Action Point. But I mean, God, I remember finding out when Ryan Dunn died, and it was really upsetting.
No,
I mean, it was in June. It was about what is it? 7 years? I think 7 years this month. It was.
The news came out after 3 came out, right?
About a year after.
Yeah,
because
that's
3
right.
came out in 2010.
It was 3.5. It's like when that like. That news came out, yeah.
I remember it was just really sad to hear about.
Man, that was when like
and he died. He had a brutal death too. I mean that was. I mean, I saw like the crash site of that. That was a horrid death that he had.
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember they were showing it on the news too, and they showed a video of Bam Margera crying at the crash site. It was just a horrible thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it was. You know, I mean, how do you like put words to something like that?
I remember that was like the start of like just kind of like all of them like not disappearing, but like just disbanding as a group.
You know what I mean? Like
that was like the start, and it was just a sad end to like the Jackass crew.
Yeah, that was. I remember that though, and it was upsetting. Then it was that whole round. I don't know if you remember the Roger Ebert controversy that guy with. You remember that with Bam Margera and stuff, which was I was gonna say, an admittedly distasteful thing to say. I love Ebert, but I mean that was a tasteless thing to say.
As much as I enjoy Ebert too, man. Like I wasn't surprised when he made those comments because it's Roger Ebert.
That is Roger. That's very Ebert. whatever. And then Bam Margera clapback, and it was, oh man, that was ugly. That was an ugly situation. But I did like Action Point. I laughed enough to where I could recommend it. I totally understand people who are disappointed in this. I get the fact that this was a case of trailer fail in the sense that all the good stunts and all the stunt work was not in the actual. There was very little unseen in the movie that wasn't in the trailer. But I got to give it 3 out of 4 stars because I did laugh a lot. I don't think it's as funny as Bad Grandpa. I thought Bad Grandpa was really riotously funny.
Bad Grandpa had me rolling in my seat.
That was a funny movie. I actually would not mind if they made a sequel to that.
I always thought they would because I was like, man, I could totally see Johnny Knoxville just doing this.
I saw something on Deadline too with the fact that this movie did not do so well too. Is that this was a movie?
Might fall back.
This was the thing. They compared it to Sacha Baron Cohen and how Sacha Baron Cohen was like huge with Ali G, so you can kind of consider that Knoxville with Jackass. And then Borat and Bruno, which you could consider Bad Grandpa. But then he did The Dictator, and then he did the Brothers Grimsby. Yeah. And those were more narrative-based movies. And he took a dive. And you could make the argument that this is kind of similar, Action Point with Knoxville.
It is similar, but like The Dictatorship, if I'm remembering correctly. I'm sorry, The Dictator and the Brothers Grimsby, they weren't real, pranks on people. It was all scripted, right?
It was a scripted narrative movie.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, like Action Point was. Because The Dictator, I did like. Brothers Grimsby was one of the worst films of that year for me. That was one of the worst films of 2016. I think was when it came out. That was a terrible film. But I give it 3 out of 4 stars. Your rating for Action Point?
As a Jackass fan and tipping my hat to Johnny Knoxville, I want to give this movie, as a fan of that, my rating is 3 stars as well.
Really?
but as judging the movie on its own, taking away my bias towards it, man, I was just looking at it, I'm like, man, it really is a 2 out of 4 star movie for me.